Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. So today I'm quite excited because we're going to discuss a really important topic for small business. And the topic is how to get free publicity for your business. For those of you that haven't met me before, my name is Andrew Patricio, and I've always been a business owner. But for the last 25 or so years, I've been educating, training, and trying to inspire business owners. And it's been really interesting because some of the most successful business owners that I've worked with over the years often will get publicity. And the advantage I believe in getting publicity is that it's almost like third-party endorsement. It's somebody else saying that, you know what, you're a good business, or somebody else saying that go and check out this business. And I think it's a big opportunity to make it part of your marketing plan. So what I'm going to share with you today are how do we get free publicity? And more importantly, I'm going to share with you some examples of small businesses that have got free publicity. And you'll see that if they can get it, so can you. And I think it's a great opportunity. Actually, when I first started my current business, BizLaunch, that is exactly how we established our brand. In the early stages, we wrote articles for local newspapers, and it was really good for our brand. And I've done it in my previous businesses too. So the one thing I want you to understand, and it's really key, is that it works. And I think that's the main thing. You don't want to be doing things if it doesn't work, but if it works, you want to try and do it in your business. So what I'm going to share with you are what are the benefits of publicity, because I think there are some key benefits that influences our decisions about whether we should try and get free publicity for our business. The first one is the most obvious, is increased sales. And I'm sure some of you have experienced this before, but you get your name in the newspaper, or you get onto a local radio station or local TV station or whatever it is, then all of a sudden people start coming into your business. And I think it's a massive opportunity. The second one, and I think something that's sometimes understated, is the importance of credibility. So every time you appear in your local media, or somebody writes about you in a blog, or interviews you on a podcast, or whatever the opportunity is, it gives you some credibility. Again, we go back to that third-party endorsement. It's somebody else saying, you know what, this person or this business is somebody you should be doing business with. The thing I like about free publicity is it's free or nearly free. And when I say nearly free, what do I mean? The reality is that for some of us, maybe some of us are really good writers and we can do our own writing, but others need to get some specialized help. And I encourage you to seek this out, because there's some really good people out there that know this. This is their business, and they can help you get the publicity if you need it. So a great opportunity for your business. It can help establish you and your business as an authority and increases traffic to your website. So all of these reasons are really valid reasons to try and see, can I get some free publicity for my business? And here's the thing I want you to understand. It is not that difficult. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples. So let me show you a few. These are new ones that I've just picked up over the last few days. I was going through, going online, trying to see, businesses that have recently got publicity. And here's a good example. This is BlogTO. And here's a small business, Mrs. Licklemores, and it says it's an upscale Caribbean-inspired Toronto restaurant that's brick and mortar home of the Hot West lockdown era pop-up. Now, what I want you to imagine is, how much would it cost this business, this small business, how much would it cost them to get an ad like that in a publication that gets thousands of readers? And these are the type of things we've got to be thinking about, getting your article mentioned in a local paper about a new restaurant that you've opened, or a new product you've introduced, or a new service you introduced, I think is a great opportunity. So the thing that I want you to understand, and I think this is really key, is that the media needs you. They need you for a whole lot of reasons. One, because you're a small business. Secondly, you're a very interesting story. And they're always looking for really good content. And if it's local, it's even better. If you're a local business that's established in the last few years and you're selling a specific product or service, they love telling those stories. But here's the thing. Whenever somebody asks you, if the media call you, you got to understand they're looking for experts. One of my favorite questions, actually, when I work with business owners, I had a coaching call early on with a business owner. And one of the questions I asked her, I said, are you a great speaker? And then she went on, she said, I've done a couple of courses and this. I said, that wasn't the question. I said, are you a great speaker? And then she mumbled on again, different stuff. I said, still haven't answered my question. Are you a great speaker? And I think this is one of the key things we need to understand as a business owner. If we've got a skill, we need to be proud of that. We need to, if the media phones me up and says to me, we're looking for somebody that's a small business expert, I'm not going to say, well, you know what, I'm not really a small business expert. I've been, running my own business for the last 25 years, but, you don't want to be saying those things. The media is looking for somebody with expertise. And if you've got an expertise, be very, very proud of it. Whatever it is, be proud of it. And actually, a good way to share your expertise is to tell your story. So even this client I was coaching today, she was telling a story about why people should be using your services. So there's an example. You've got an expertise and people want to understand that expertise. So the media is looking for people like that. So that's one of the things you've got to do, is position yourself. So how do you position yourself as an expert? How do you get people to know that you know something about air condition cleaning? How do you get people to know that you're an expert in cheese? How do you get people to know that you've got specialized knowledge in fruit and vegetables or whatever it is? There are a couple of really good ways of doing it. And I like really simple ways. Things like writing for trade publications. And I know this is not such a common thing nowadays, that you have trade publications, but there are still a bunch out there that you can write for that are looking for content all the time. And then this gives you a little bit more credibility. The second thing you can do is write articles for blogs. And I think this is a massive opportunity. I really think this is a massive opportunity. There are a lot of blogs, either locally or across the province or even across the country, that are looking for content. And you can approach them, write an article, send it through to them and refer to your business. Again, this is a really good way to get your name out there. Another key benefit that sometimes people don't realize is that you're creating a backlink to your website. So if you've ever spoken to web designers, they'll say, you want to try and get as many good links to your website as possible. And the best links to websites are typically government websites. So for example, if you've got a small business center in your region and they do a newsletter or they write articles about your type of business in the area. I know, for example, Chatham Kent does a really good job of that, and a bunch of other small business centers. If you can get your business name onto their website, that's a really good link. Another very good link, inbound link for your business, is newspapers. So if you can get into a local newspaper, or even better, if you can get into a national newspaper, if that's relevant for your business, that would be a big opportunity. So there's two benefits here. One is you improving your brand, you being recognized as an expert. But the third one, I think, is the key, is you're getting really good quality inbound links coming to your website. If you've got a blog yourself, one of the rules are, and one of the important things are, you should be creating content regularly. And again, good content is very, very good for credibility, but it's also good for search engine optimization on your website. So a good idea is to have your blog on your website. And it's just a massive opportunity. Every morning when I wake up, there's 2 or 3 emails from people saying, I've written this great article, I'd like to share it on your blog. So it's a very, very common thing and a good strategy. The other thing you can do is participate at conference, especially those of you that are in the service business. And I think I'm going to give you a very good example today. One of my favorite examples is a business owner that used that exact strategy. Actually, when I started working internationally, that was one of my strategies. I attended international conferences presented papers, or to me, it was just doing a presentation, but the academics call it presenting papers. And that was really, really good for my credibility. So those are some of the things, depending on the nature of your business, these are some of the things you can do to help build your authority. So people recognize your name, they see you, and it's a really powerful thing. Actually, I had an example this morning. Somebody said to me, they recognized me from the one of the videos we created for a big program across Ontario. So it just shows you never know who's seeing things about you out there. And when people read about you, or people watch a video about you, or something like that, it gives them a little bit of, it almost like warms the lead a little bit. It gives you a little bit more credibility than you had before. So those are the things that you want to be doing. For those of you that offer consulting services and things like that, writing a book is maybe a good idea. Not my favorite thing, even though I've written 2 books. I found that the impact of writing a book was almost like a business card. You know, you got into more publicity opportunities if you've written a book. People want to interview you on radio, they want to interview you on TV. So if you're selling a service, you know, maybe writing a book would be a good idea. But if that's not your thing, because you potentially probably not going to make money out of it, maybe even create an ebook or something like that that people can share around, just so to share your knowledge. And I think that's really the key in all of these examples that I'm using. One of your objectives is to share your knowledge, share your experience, you know, educate people on what you do really well. So write a book and share content on social media. So these are all opportunities that we can use to build this credibility. And I mean, if you can get a good following, it's wonderful. I mean, you know, if you've got a following on Instagram or TikTok or LinkedIn, maybe if you're doing business to business, but any of those opportunities are really good. They help you close sales much easier, because often people will Google. Well, I do. You know, if I'm going to meet up with somebody, or if I'm going to be going to a retail type store, if I want to buy something online, I'll just Google a person to see a little bit about their business. Here's another example, a very, very simple example that I found, and a great story. You know, the media is always looking for great stories. And this is an example, a recent example. Actually, I bought from these guys during COVID. When we were in the lockdown, I didn't realize it was a Greek family, but what a lovely story. You know, Greek family moves from Greece to Canada, starts their own business. Now their whole family's employed in the business, and they sell to groups like McEwan's and Longo's. A great story, you know, one of those warm and fuzzy stories that make you feel good. As an entrepreneur, it makes me feel good when I see stories like this. But as a consumer, it tells you a little bit about the family. It tells you a little bit about their background. It tells you a little bit about their Canadian story. And everybody loves reading stories about business. And I think when it comes to small business, our story is really, really important. And I want you to understand that. Your story of how you started, why you started, when you started, what motivated you, all of those things are things that the media want to hear. They're going to ask you these questions because they're important questions for their readers. So there you go. How appropriate. The next slide speaks about your story. I always say to business owners, every business owner needs a story. I have a story, but so do you have a story. And telling our story often makes the sale without us selling. And again, you know, a lot of these business owners that I speak to, they've got a story. You know, they had a problem in their life. They decided they were going to open their own business. They saw that there was an opportunity and they got started. So a lot of us have stories. And if we haven't written down our story, I encourage you to do this, or find somebody, maybe a copywriter or a storyteller that can write it for you and tell your story, because people are inquisitive. They want to know why, they want to know how, they want to know where did this idea come from, where did those recipes come from, how did you learn to become such a great, I don't know, whatever, nail designer, or how did you learn how to become a great photographer? All of those things, what motivated you, what inspired you, those things are part of your story. And I always say to people, you know, there's 2 ways to tell a story. There's the boring way or the interesting way. If I was you, I would tell it in an interesting way. Speak about some of your trials and tribulations, about some of the positive stories, some of the challenges you had, all of those things. But your story needs to be interesting. What do the media really look for? Firstly, how did you start your business? I can't tell you how many times I've been interviewed, and the interviewers will ask me, they'll say, how did you get involved in this industry? What motivated you? And then I tell my story. And they like to hear it. Do they always publish it? No, but it's interesting to know, where this came from, how I got involved, all those type of things. So I want you to understand your story is quite an important part of what the media is looking for. And if you've got something interesting or some unique stories, that is a great idea. I remember, for example, two young people that started a chai tea business. They had a great story, actually. They worked for a coffee store that sold this tea in Australia, really liked it, came back to Canada, replicated the recipe. But before they did that, they traveled to different parts in the East to find the best teas in the world, and then created a business in Ontario. But that story was really interesting. They just didn't sell tea, they sold their whole story. How they worked in Australia, in some of the best coffee shops in the world. I don't know if any of you have traveled, but some of the best privately owned coffee shops in the world are there. They worked in there, they learned this recipe, they try and replicate it by traveling to the East, buying these specialized teas and things like that, and then launch their own business. So people like to hear those stories. Where did it come from? How did you come up with the idea? Where did you get your tea from? What motivated you to sell tea? Those type of things. So how did you start your business? Next thing could be, why did you start your business? What was your reason? And a lot of us have stories. I know, for example, I've just come back from a really interesting trip in the north of Spain, where I was doing a walk, 124-kilometer walk that I did over 6 days. And I was with a group of business owners, and each one of them had a story of why they started their businesses. So the one guy lost his job and then started selling timeshare, and then was transferred, and then he saw this opportunity, and that's how he started. The other guy was in a business, and he identified an opportunity, a product that was selling really well, in his case, dried fruit and nuts, and then he decided to launch a new business selling dried fruit and nuts. And the other business owner, she loved sailing and she loved traveling around the world, and her and her partner started this travel company that is now one of the biggest in the world. But, so everybody has a story, and people want to hear that story. So you've got to understand that telling your story in an interesting way that people want to listen to, I think, is a competitive advantage. What makes it special, unique? And I'm always trying to work out that and trying to find out from business owners. I'll often ask them this question. I'll say, why should I buy from you rather than somebody else? And it's a very, very important question that you answer. Because if you've got something that you're doing that is unique, if you've got something that you're doing that is special, if you've got something that you're doing that is different, the media wants to know that. So they can tell their audience, they can say, this person learned this recipe from their grandmother, they brought the spices from different parts of the world, or whatever the story is. People want to know. They want to know what makes you unique, what makes you different, and what makes you special. And from a marketing perspective, this is just such a core principle, but really, really important when you're trying to get publicity, and what makes it interesting. I mean, I could tell stories for hours and hours, or probably days and days, about business owners that I've worked with that have gone on to become very, very successful, and their stories of how they did, why they did it, why they were successful, what motivated them, all of those things. I could speak about that for hours and hours, because there's so many different stories to tell. So as a business owner, you need to understand that. So we've got a question here. Where's this going to be available? Mr. Fistoff, we've just started, Ravani, so, but there will be a recording. Okay, it'll be recorded and posted on the My Main Street website, so you don't have to worry about that. Okay, Nirvani, so it will be available. So You want to tell your story. It needs to be unique. It needs to be different. It needs to be motivating. It needs to be inspiring. And it needs to be interesting. So keep that in mind. So here's another example. Actually, a very, very good strategy. I'm going to speak about this business owner a few times today because I think she does such a good job. So let me tell you a story. Nama is an architect and an urban designer, and she did a business course with me maybe 5 years ago, and she had just moved to Canada, and she said to me, Andrew, this is going to be very, very difficult for me to establish my business. And I said, you are right. I said, you're in a new country. Nobody knows who you are. You're an immigrant. You're a female in a male-dominated industry. You know what? You're going to probably struggle. I said, but if I was you, these are the two key things I would focus on. I would focus on sharing content on LinkedIn because you're targeting business to business. And the second thing I would focus on is trying to get free publicity. And she hasn't done a great job. She's done a much better job than I expected. She's done such a great job that you can actually go to a website, and on her website, she's got a link. There you go, media. This is how much publicity she's got over the last couple of years. She's even got a link for media speaking about a business. When they've appeared in the media, you can see examples of newspapers they've been in, the Globe and Mail. She's been on Global News. She's been on CBC. You can see all of these things. This is a small business owner, just like you and I, that took what I'm teaching you today and used it really, really well and got a lot of publicity. She's even got so many requests now that she's got a link on her website that says media inquiry. So if the media are looking for somebody to interview, they just click on the link and it gives a lot of information about it. But here's the thing, that's not how she started. You've got to understand that what happens in your business, once you get a little bit of publicity, almost has the snowball effect. Why? Because the media read other media. So in her case, she appeared in the Star, she appeared in the Globe and Mail, she appeared on TV, and other media see her, and they position. Great example, new immigrant, female, in a male-dominated industry. The media loves stories like it. They really do. And I want you to find out what your thing is. Actually, that's another really good example I was just thinking about. If you're from a community, a specific community or background or whatever it is, you know what? Approach them. I remember recently I was doing a program called Summer Company for students in Halton region. And I remember one young woman saying to me that she was going to approach one of the ethnic radio stations. And I said, why are we going to do that? She said, well, in our community, everybody listens to the ethnic radio stations and they believe everything that's on there because they listen to it because it's in their local language. So there's a very good example of, just thinking differently and trying to identify opportunities to get publicity for your business. And that's what you want to be doing. Remember what it is. It's third-party endorsement. Somebody, for example, let's use an example of an ethnic radio station. They're inviting you in to speak about your specific expertise, whatever it is. In her case, she was offering a tutoring for kids in math and science. So that was her specialty. So maybe she'd go onto the radio station. They'd ask them, because she was a young student, why did you start this business? And she'd tell her story. And then they might say, how did you start this business? And then she'd tell a story about the summer company program or something like that. And then they'd probably ask her, what services you offer and what makes you special and different. So there's an example of a very, very different industry. So what I want you to think about are the opportunities to somehow get out there. And the other thing also, I think, which is a really key thing, you are basically your business. Most of us, including myself, we are our business. So when we get publicity for our business, it benefits us. So, and especially if you're in the early stages, maybe the first 3 to 5 years of your business, you've got to understand that your brand as an individual is probably bigger than your business's brand. Over time, your business's brand hopefully will become bigger than your personal brand. So in the beginning, going on and being interviewed and having discussions and things like that will benefit your brand, which in turn will benefit your business in the long term. Another good idea is also to identify somebody that's going to represent your business, and if you're not the right person, choose somebody in your business to represent. So if you need to be interviewed by the media, they would approach them. So here's another example. Actually, this is a very nice, really simple example. This is a small business that I mentor based in Sparwood. She doesn't even know that I'm sharing this on today's webinar, but I'm sure she wouldn't mind a bit of publicity in BC, this little town. And they've got this little thing called Small Town Social. There you go. There's a story about her chocolate business. Any publicity, I believe, is good. Now, let's go back to that example I gave you earlier on, where I said to you the big advantage, for example, of getting onto the Small Town Social is that it has a link back to her website. So there's a link back to her website, which will draw traffic to her website. But more importantly, it's a quality inbound link for search engine optimization. So as her business grows and scales, because she's a relatively new business, but beautiful chocolates, she makes wonderful chocolates. As her business grows and scales, these things will become really, really important. So I want you to understand, it doesn't matter how small your business is, it doesn't matter how big your business is, any one of you can get publicity. But again, the key here is almost that state of mind. It's really that state of mind. I've got an interesting story to tell. The media needs to know about it. I'll give you a very good example, a very simple example of where you can almost use community relations as a way of getting publicity. So years ago, I used to own a retail store. And we had a flood in our town, which is something that could happen any day, especially now with global warming. We had a flood in our town, knocked out all the water, but I had a well on my property. So I phoned the local radio station and said to them that, if anybody wanted some water, they could come to my business and I would give them a couple of liters of water. And you know exactly what happened. People heard this story. We had people queuing up outside of our business, waiting for the water. And I have sometimes reflected on that period of business, and that was almost like the tipping point for my business. Was there luck involved? Absolutely. Every single business owner that I meet, and I meet many of them on a daily basis, often have a bit of luck. And when you get that bit of luck, you've got to take advantage of that situation. So in my case, it was almost a tipping point for my business, because my business grew a lot after getting this publicity in the local radio station. And I mean, there's lots of radio stations, big radio stations, small radio stations. I travel across Ontario quite regularly and listen to different radio stations, and these are opportunities. But let's just think of somebody working in media. So somebody working for a newspaper or for a local radio station or for a TV station or for a blog. They obviously want stuff that is interesting. So if you just write an article about your business that is boring, that's probably not going to work. So you've got to try and be creative. You want to find things that are new. You want to find things that are unusual, or even better, find things that are sensational. And, if you can participate in local community events, that also really, really helps. One of the strategies, a really simple strategy you can use, let's say, for example, you want to do a fundraiser, or a very simple thing, you opening your new business. So you may do a ribbon cutting, maybe ask one of the, maybe the mayor of the town, ask her to come along and do a ribbon. All these little things are very, very effective. So you've got to understand, and you've got to think about, how can I capitalize on this new, on this unusual, on the sensational scenario that I'm going through, or event that I'm going through. And these are the type of things you want to understand, that these are the opportunities. These are really the opportunities for you that you can capitalize on. So the media wants things that are new. unusual, and sensational. And they also wanted to affect as many people as possible and to be of public interest. Okay, so that's really the key. It's about their readers. So if I've got a blog and you've got some really interesting content, it's going to be beneficial to my readers. And that's what you want to be thinking about. Okay, so try and find something like that. And there's a lot of examples. And one of the things that I also really like is like smaller publications. You know, I've noticed over the last, actually very interestingly enough, over the last year or two, new publications launching that are really interesting because they're very, very targeted. They're going after a small community. And that could be an opportunity for you, even if, you know, just to practice on how to get free publicity. So remember, this article, this press release, this bit of information that I'm sharing is going to affect as many people and be of public interest. So here's another example. You know, just think of this example. This is a business in Chatham, Kent. These guys, husband and wife team, I believe, have just opened in 2020. They opened a brewery. Now, just imagine the impact that this interview on TV, in this case CTV, has on this business. But you know what happened here? They probably, somebody recommended, they messaged the TV station, or maybe somebody involved in small business at the Small Business Center recommended they do that, or whatever it is. But this is the big opportunity. Look at this brand. This thing will be around forever. They can use it on their website, obviously, creating CTV. They can share it with their clients. They think of it, investors maybe would be interested in this. I know in our early days in this business, we used to say to our potential clients, you know, we can get lots of publicity. And they said, how do you know that? And we showed them a lot of the publicity we got. And they said, okay, sounds like you can get lots of publicity. And sometimes that's a good motivation. Actually, yesterday I was speaking to somebody really interesting that works with young entrepreneurs in disadvantaged communities. And I was saying to her, you know, if you can get one little success story, not a lot of success stories, just one little success story, and get them into the media, maybe onto a local radio station or a local TV station or a local magazine, it could really influence the amount of money you could raise for this not-for-profit. So I want you to think about this. It's about the profile. It's about getting your name out there. It's about potential customers seeing you. All of these things are opportunities. And every single one of these examples that I've shown you on the screen so far, all of these are small businesses. Every single one of them are small businesses like you and I. Your story always needs to be interesting. So it needs to be interesting reading, viewing, or listening. I mean, a big opportunity when it comes to listening nowadays are podcasts. Podcasts have become very, very popular. So maybe that's an opportunity for you. Again, depending on the nature of your business, you know, that may or may not be an opportunity. Your ideas or your news needs to be innovative. It needs to be creative. It needs to benefit the readers. It could be funny, for example, or extraordinary. I mean, I think of an example. Years ago, there was a guy, I don't believe he's alive anymore, but he used to have a list of the 10 worst dressed people. I mean, sounds a little bit offensive when I think about it, but the point was that he created a lot of publicity about, you know, speaking about this. Again, I don't want you to be nasty to people, but the point is that you can really, really benefit out of, you know, telling people different things. You know, the colors of the year, the top selling pizza, you know, those are the type of things people are really curious about and very interested. So what I'm going to share with you now are 10 specific ways that you can create buzz and get publicity for your business. And I want you to think about this. Every single one, I want you to think about it and think, how can I use this potentially in getting publicity for my business? So the first one is to do customer surveys. You know, the media is always interested in this. You know, according to customer survey that we did, people like pineapple on pizza. There you go. And, you know, there's always going to be this debate or whatever it is that people from Italy or Italians will say you shouldn't ever put pineapple on pizza, but Canadians like pineapple on pizza, whatever. So things like that can be very, very effective. I've used that quite a few times over the years. We've approached maybe a local university or local college, spoken to one of the professors, maybe created a bit of a questionnaire, got the students to do the survey and then publish the results. And we've used it very, very effectively over the years. So it's one of those things that you can do. They're simple, they're not exact, they're not scientific, they're none of those things, but they can be very effective. The next thing you can do is create top 10 lists. The top 10 colors of 2022, the top 10 t-shirts or clothing or whatever it is you should be wearing for the winter this year. So things like that, the media is always interested in. So they like lists, the top 5, the top 3, but so do you and I. I mean, if you think of doing anything, if you want to look for a restaurant in your area, and then you've got the top 5 restaurants or the top 10 restaurants, or the top 15 restaurants in your area. These are all things that, are interesting. They're interesting for you and you will notice them. That doesn't mean you'll read the article, but you'll notice them. But sometimes you will. And I think that's something you can come up with. I think of just a really simple thing. If you read a lot of books, like I do, not so much anymore, but I've read many over the years and I have a large library. When you go into bookstores, they'll always have a top 10 or a top 20. Let me tell you, interestingly enough, about that top 10 or top 20, 80% of the book sales come from those books. So it just shows you that people are interested in these things. They are interested in knowing what are other people buying, what you basically helping people make the purchasing decision. So if you've got things, the top 5 home renovations of 2022, or 5 things you should do to improve your gardening in 2023 are things that people are interested in. The other thing you can do is develop an annual community award. Those are very, very effective because the media loves those, where, get local schools involved and they go and collect litter in a certain area and you supply the bags, you supply the bags and things like that. That could be a big opportunity. Actually, I just thought of a very, very interesting story. Well, it's interesting for me. One of the most successful business owners I trained was a young woman by the name of Cindy. And what she did, which was really, really smart, and you don't need to do this, but I'll tell you what she did, is she started by, one of the first things she started by going to these old age homes in the area and every Christmas giving these mature or older people a Christmas gift. So that's where she started. So a really simple thing, let me start this. And then eventually she started a foundation. But this is what's happened. The foundation has made her so high profile, which has really benefited her business. So it's really, really benefited. So understand that getting involved in your community improves your profile in your community, and then it benefits your business. And that's the way you got to think about it. So it's a win-win for everybody. You're helping the community, and because you're helping the community, it gives you a bit of credibility among the community, and you benefit from people coming into your store because they want to buy from you. That's what they do. They want to buy from you. So I think it's a good strategy as a business owner to make that part of your growth, that you get involved in community projects, you create these opportunities, to improve your local community. And I always say to people, it just takes a bit of leadership. That's all it is. It takes a little bit of leadership. And as business owners on our main streets, we've got that authority almost, because people respect business owners. Very, very interesting in Canada, people respect business owners. So it's a big opportunity. The other big opportunity, I think, for small business owners is to piggyback on a great story. I mean, you've seen it, for example, many times over the years. There'll be something in the media that'll become very, very topical. And the next minute, people are buying this or buying that or whatever it is. And those are some of the things that you want to be doing. And I can think of a lot of examples over the years where small business owners have seen something in the media then told their side of the story, and got a lot of publicity. So, just watch what's on TV, watch what's on radio, or listen to what's on radio, read what's in your local magazines and things like that. And if you have got some expertise in the field, why not, contact them? Will they always respond? Absolutely not. But why not at least reach out? That's the first step, is reach out and say, you know what, you were speaking last week about gardening. We run a gardening business locally, and I can give your readers 5 tips on what they need to do to improve their gardening. Again, use it as an opportunity to educate and build your brand. Write a story about some surprising facts. I'll give an example. I remember when I first started this business years ago, I met a banker. We were at this networking event, and she came up to me and she said to me, "What do you do?" And I said, "I teach people the steps they need to take to build a successful business." She said, "Well, that's not the best thing to be doing." I said, "Why do you say that?" She said, "Well, the failure rate of small business is so high." I said, "And what is that?" And she said, "Well, it's about 80%. And I said, "How do you know that?" She said, "No, the bank has statistics." And I said, in those days, we used to use fax machines. I said, "Could you fax me those stats?" And obviously, she didn't fax them to me, because nobody has statistics that 80% of small businesses in Canada fail. And I used that as an opportunity to say that the failure rate of small business was nowhere near 80%. I didn't say what it was, because I didn't know, but I disputed a common shared. I know I've worked in many different countries, and when I get there, one of the first questions I ask them, I say, "So what is the failure rate of small business in your country?" And they'll say 80%. And I'm always amazed that these are different countries on different continents. They all say the same thing, but it's this urban myth that's been going around for years that the failure rate is that high. So again, these are some of the things we need to understand. Yes, a really, really good opportunity. Actually, I thought about this idea this morning, so I changed my slides and put this on. But entering business awards, I know it's a silly thing, and I don't believe you should take it too seriously, but let me tell you something. Every single time you get a business award, whether it's your local Chamber of Commerce, whether it's your local BIA, your local magazine, newspapers, whatever it is, it's very, very good for your business. Actually, you're almost guaranteed an interview. So I just did a Google search this morning. I don't know if these websites that I've shared on the screen are good or bad. I just typed in Canadian Business Awards, and all of these came up. But I know in certain cities, I know, for example, in Windsor, Ontario, they've got a local magazine, which is really unusual, because that region has its own magazine. Again, an entrepreneur that's been running it for years and has survived, which always fascinates me. And every year she runs a Business Person of the Year. So go and look for these things. They are great, great opportunities, and something that may work for you. Again, the advice I've given to business owners before is, if you want to become more high profile, you want to be doing these things. Again, because you're building a brand, people are recognizing you. And what happens is, when you've built a brand for yourself, it moves from business to business. And I've seen that before I was involved in this industry. I was involved in retailing, totally different industry. But you know what? When I moved to small business training and development, I capitalized on those contacts. So these are some of the things that you need to understand are big, big opportunities. The other thing that people love listening to are Rags to Riches story. Actually, one of my favorite examples is Robert Herjavec, who's been on Dragon's Den. I believe he's coming back to Dragon's Den on the new series, and then moved to Shark Tank. He tells a great story of how his parents arrived from Croatia with $20, and how they struggled, and how he even gets emotional when he tells the story. And, people love hearing those stories. People love hearing that. I started out and I struggled, and, and I get inspired by those stories when I meet people like that. And remember, the media loves those things. So if you can tell that story, I don't know, you came from a family that wasn't entrepreneurial, or you went to school and you didn't pass, or you went to university and you failed, or you were fired from your job. People love that story. I was working for somebody, they fired me. I decided to start my own business, and this is where I am now. I've built this business that employs 2 people or whatever it is. Sponsor a local community service project. Again, I think these things need to be strategic. I've seen a lot of small business owners, for example, do a great job sponsoring local football teams, sponsoring local hockey teams. I think those are all good opportunities. But also, you don't just want to spend the money and don't measure results. So you want to try and maybe get more involved and maybe give them a discount code or whatever it is. But again, you want to be creative and you want to see if it's effective. Because if you're sponsoring the local hockey team and you're getting business from it, that's a wonderful story. But if you're sponsoring the local hockey team and your business is not surviving, I'm not sure that's a very good idea. So just keep that in mind. You know, sometimes people have this passion, they want to help local community projects, but their businesses are not benefiting from it. So just try and identify community service projects that could benefit your business. Not always the case, but you want to try. Disprove a well-known myth. That example I gave you early on of the failure rate of small business being so high, that's an example. Write a story about being the first. I remember a small business owner that I had at one of my training programs. He brought in a special coffee machine from Italy, and it was the first one in Canada. And the media lapped that up. They loved it. They wrote a story about him, and he went on to become very successful, sold his business, and now opened a new business. But interesting again, the media latched onto that new machine all the way from Italy, makes special, I don't know what, espressos and cappuccinos now available in North Bay or whatever it is. So the media loves stories like that. Do some research. I mean, again, this could be maybe a little bit expensive, but could maybe work for some of you. If you know, have a contact, a local college or something like that, you know, do maybe something more scientific research and then publish the findings. Again, all of these things give you an opportunity to get into the local media and give you a bit of credibility because this person knows their stuff is basically how it works. The other thing that I always say to small business owners is that you can do it yourself. And I'm going to show you how to do it yourself. But I think sometimes it's very good advice to get an expert. And there's a lot of people that do this, you know, in small business, that's their business. Their business is networking with the media and then writing press releases and getting them into the media. And we've used this in our business quite a few times over the years and very, very effectively. Actually, we don't spend any money on marketing at the moment, but if I did, that would probably where I would spend my money, because I think that's where you get the best mileage. You know, we got an interesting business. We train small business owners. We work both locally and internationally. We develop digital programs and all those type of things. So it's a very interesting thing because we have an impact on economic development. So that's probably where my money would go. But let me tell you an interesting story. I put an ad for a marketing person at the local university. So I put an ad for a marketing person, and then I interviewed people. So I interviewed quite a bunch of people, which you should always do as a small business owner. Don't assume just because somebody said that they've done marketing that they're good. And I remember Heather coming into the interview and I said to her, "Are you a good writer?" She said, "Actually, I am," which was a very good answer. I said, "You know what? Before the end of the year, we're going to get an article in the Globe and Mail and you're going to write it." And she said, "How do you know?" I said, "Well, I don't know. That's my goal and I'm going to show you how to do it." And then she said, "What are we going to write about?" I said, we're going to write down the 10 things that small business owners need to do to grow their business in, let's say, 2023. And that's exactly the article we wrote, and the media picked it up, and she was there a few months, and she already got it. So the point I'm trying to make is that you can do it internally, or you can do it, you can pay somebody to do it. Another very good example, actually, some of you might know of this business called 1-800-GOT-JUNK. It's a Canadian company. It's the biggest garbage removal company in the world. And what he used to do is he used to run competitions in his office, saying to his staff that he guaranteed that he'd get more free publicity than them. And so they ran this competition all the time. And if you know the guy, Brian Scudamore, you know that he's been interviewed on so many TV stations. You know, just go onto YouTube, you'll see he's been interviewed on blogs, on podcasts, and all that type of stuff. Why? Because he realized that, you know what, this is one of the easiest and most affordable ways to grow your brand, because it's third-party endorsement. So that's what you got to do. But here's another example. Let's say you don't know somebody, or you don't have a college. Actually, if any of you go this afternoon onto Google and type in public relations courses, Ontario, you'll find a local college. I know I did that, and I had a whole list of different colleges that offer PR courses. You can contact the colleges and say, I would like to get a student, and I will give them live projects to work on, and they can try and get me publicity. And if you get the right smart student, it can work in your favor. But again, you can also just go online. You know, nowadays we've got this big advantage that any service you want, doesn't matter what it is, you can go onto the internet, you can Google it, and you can find it. I mean, there's websites like Fiverr, which I don't typically use, just so you know. Upwork is another one you can use, and there's a few others that I can't think of off the top of my head. But here's an example. You'll see this lady says that I will write an awesome press release for you. This person here says I will check or distribute your press release. So this person will write it for you. This one will check it, edit it, and distribute it for you. So there are people out there that do this. I had a very good example once, somebody that raised $800,000 on a Kickstarter campaign, and that is exactly what he did. He went onto Fiverr, found a whole lot of people that could do this, sent a press release globally, and raised $800,000. And it was really very simple, but very effective. He had a lot of failure before he eventually succeeded. You know, sometimes we don't tell those stories. We tell the nice part. You know, he got these people, sent out the press releases, and he got all this money. Before that, he had failed so many different times. So you want to try and identify somebody. Like me, I'm not a good writer. I would always get somebody to do it for me. I'd either employ somebody or I'd outsource it. And nowadays, I'd probably outsource it. The thing you want to do is you want to target the right media. So like anything we do in marketing, it needs to be targeted. So you want to try and identify, as a business owner, what magazines do my clients read, if that's a medium for you? What newspapers do my clients read? Because if you get publicity, I mean, all publicity is good, but if you get publicity in a newspaper that your clients or potential customers don't read, not going to be that effective. What radios, the TV stations do they listen to? What blogs do they read? You know, those are the type of things you want to identify. It's like getting onto podcasts, you know, or a YouTube channel. There's a lot of people that interview people on YouTube channels and things like that, or interview them on podcasts and things like that. If your customers or potential customers are not listening to that, I don't see, you know, the relevance of it. I mean, it's good to get any publicity, but if you want it to be more effective, you want to be targeting the media. And then choose the media you'd like to get into. And usually the easier way, and we've always given this advice over the years, is start off with local blogs, start off with local newspapers that are, you know, community newspapers. There's still a thing in Canada, you know, so start off with those type of mediums and then evolve, because you'll learn what works and what doesn't work, and you'll become really smart after a bit of time. The other thing you can do is target journalists. And we've done that a lot over the years. I used to know journalists that specifically wrote about small business. And every now and then I'd reach out to them and say, you know what, I got this interesting story about this business owner, or this interesting, you know, the interest rates are going up and how small businesses are going to deal with it, or the impact of COVID on small business or whatever. You know, there's always those things. And because you know this person specifically writes for your industry, could be a strategy. So maybe if you're in the wellness business, or you're in the fashion business, or if you're in a green industry, you want to try and find out people that write about that. So journalists that write about that, you can then approach them. that doesn't mean they're going to respond. You know, like anything in life, you know, somebody was saying to me today, she says, I phone people and they never phone me back. I said, that's the story of a small business owner. They phone people, they never get calls. I said, if I was you, I'd get out of my apartment and I would just walk into the office. She said, like, just walk in. I said, yep, walk in and say, can I speak to somebody? Because then they can see you. They can see you a human being. In her case, she's in the fitness industry. They can see she's a fitness person. I mean, she doesn't have to lie. And, you know, some people say, well, you know, that's hard. I know running a business is hard. I always say to people, running a business is one of the most challenging things you'd ever do. So, you know, it's basically having the guts or being desperate enough to be able to, you know, approach these people. So how do you build up contacts? So there are two ways you can do this. One, if you use somebody that does PR, public relations or publicity, they usually have an updated database, which they pay for often of the media. And we've never done that in our case. What I typically do, and we don't do it much anymore, but typically what I would do is I would go to a newspaper, see who their media contacts were, and then approach them. I mean, it's a little bit of a shot in the dark, but it worked for me because we used to have interesting stories. Or if it's a radio and TV station, you contact the producers. That's what you do. You know, you go onto their websites, you find their details, which is the long way around, just so you know. Ideally, you want to get a list. And if you can't get a list, you want to know somebody that knows somebody. That is usually the best thing. The best way, I must be honest with you, is if you know somebody that knows somebody at the local radio station. If you know somebody that knows somebody at the local, or if you know somebody that writes the blog, is usually the best method, okay? So reach out to people in your community is my advice to you. Create a database, collect the name of editors, reporters, columnists. If you're doing TV and radio, collect the numbers for the news desks and program directors because they make the decisions. And then keep your list updated because it changes all the time. I've seen it over the years. You know, some of the guys that were writing for us, you know, about us 10 years ago are not in the industry anymore. So I have to go reach out and look for new people. So that would be my strategy. Here's another one of my favorite stories. Actually, this is a story from Windsor, Ontario. And I met these two business owners on a program that I was running called Start a Company Program. And it's a lovely story. Mother and son. Mother used to make this salad dressing, and the son said, you know what, I'd like to sell it at the local market, started selling it. And now they have their product in Costco, they have it in Sobeys, and they've become very, very successful. But I think the thing that attracted the media, what attracted me initially, anyway, I said to them, you got a great story. You really have a great story. And the media will love it. You immigrants, Windsor, Ontario, you know, all of those things work in your favor. And I've watched them over the years. I mean, I actually advised them for a bit of time, but I've watched them over the years of how they've gone from publicity to publicity. It started off in the local newspaper, then it got on to CBC News. Because they got into CBC News, they were invited to a trade show. At the trade show, they met the Costco buyer. Do you see what starts happening? It almost has the snowball effect. And they are great stories. So if any of you want to be inspired, actually look them up. They're a great story, a great example. Young guy started the business, I think, when he was 16. He's still young, maybe 21 or 22. I can't even remember. There you go. There it is. Started Cedar Valley Selections at the age of 16. There you go. So a great story, a very inspiring story. But I'm telling you that the publicity really, really helped them. Okay. And it was on a webinar like this, or a seminar like this that they attended, that they learned the value of getting publicity. The key thing is, if you communicate with the media, is to follow up. So, and the best way is use the telephone, you know, and understand that these people are not waiting for you saying, oh, hopefully somebody's going to phone them. So use the telephone, be polite, be friendly, all those type of things. Ask them if you've sent them a press release, ask them if they've received the press release. Is there any interest in the press release? You know, ask them if they want to would like to clarify anything so you can explain. Ask them if they require, would like to take photographs. You should always have good quality photographs. You know, I would even encourage, if you're a business owner and you're trying to get some publicity, is get a professional photographer. They are really, really good at what they do. So get a professional photographer to take some headshots with you, take some shots of you in your business, doing what you do in your business and things like that. So if the media ask you for a really high quality photograph, you can just send it to them. And it's really, really important, you know, because it's your image, it's all those type of things that you need. And then always build relationships with the reporters and encourage the reporters to contact you if they need anything. So it's really about building a relationship. And if they like you, they will keep contacting you. I've seen it many, many times. I promise you, with a lot of my business owners, I've seen them benefiting from this whole, you know, being nice to people and things like that. Now, when you're going to be interviewed, which is often they would phone you. I mean, sometimes they'd come around, but typically they would phone you. I always say, you know, be well prepared, you know, get ready for the interview, you know, set a time aside, maybe have an office that you can go into where you won't be disturbed. There's nothing worse than you're being interviewed by this radio station or this newspaper or this TV station, and your staff keep coming in, interrupting you. So I always say to people, be well prepared. Have some statistics. If you can, the media love statistics. I mean, for years, they would ask me for different percentages and things like that. Not my favorite thing to be sharing, especially in our business. They always want to know, what is the success rate of people that have been in your training program? They always want to know that question, which I always found interesting. Use examples. I think one of the great things is you tell stories. That doesn't mean they will pick up your story, but always tell examples, explain things, you know, tell them different scenarios of different things that would be of interest to them. Set a time when you won't be disturbed, in an office where you won't be disturbed, which is really important. I always encourage people, if you're ever going to be interviewed, you know, just keep your answers simple, easy to understand, to the point, you know, don't waffle on, which is something important. Sometimes that's the only challenge if you tell stories, is sometimes you can waffle on a bit, you know, so watch people's body language and realize, just cut the story short. Actually, this happened to me yesterday. I was sitting there with somebody and I thought I was telling a very interesting story, an entrepreneur, and I was telling her this very interesting story, but I could see by her body language, she was not that interested. So I just cut the story short, which is a good strategy as a business owner, because sometimes we talk too much. So keep your answers simple, easy to understand and to the point, and just relax and be yourself. It's just the media. I always say to people, it's just the media. Don't get too caught up in that whole thing. Here's a very, very important thing. Actually, you've got to know that nothing is off the record. I have a very, I think, great rookie example to share with you, and hopefully you'll find it interesting. When I first started this business, maybe 3 or 4 years after I'd started, I was new to Canada, maybe been here 3 years or whatever it is, and I was interviewed by one of the big newspapers, and they wanted me to discuss partnerships. And they said to me, I said, off the record, what I tell small business owners is that before you go into a partnership, sign the divorce agreement so that you plan for the worst case scenario. So that's what I said to the guy. I said, but don't put that in newspaper, but that's what I did. What did the guy do? Heading. Small business expert tells small business owners to develop a divorce agreement in advance. And I thought to myself, you know what? Nothing is ever off the record. And you've got to understand this. So just be very, very careful. Actually, I have a cousin actually that was involved. He had a fire at his business. And I was watching him being interviewed on TV. And I was thinking to myself, you shouldn't be saying that. Sometimes not saying anything is the best answer. So just be very, very careful of saying stuff that you shouldn't be saying things that are off the record. And I've made those rookie mistakes before, and I don't want you to make them. Never speak about your competitors. Don't say anything about your competitors, you know, and especially don't say bad things about your competitors. It's unprofessional, and I don't think you should be doing it. Usually, reporters are quite well trained to ask the right questions. They trained at university. I don't know where they get trained, but they can be really good. I mean, I can think of quite a few reporters that have interviewed me, and I've gone to read the story afterwards and thought, that was well written. Okay, so some of them are really good at that. Ask a reporter what angle they want so that you can give relevant stories, that are interesting. And if they're writing to a specific target market, so typically I would do that. People would say, oh, we're writing for moms that are in business, or we're writing for boomers that are in business, or we're writing for millennials, whatever it is. And then you try and tailor-make the content specifically for the audience. Obviously, it's not always easy to do, but you try and do that. I always say make friends with the media. I think it's a very good strategy in life to be nice, but in the media, it's really important. And it really worked in our favor in this business and in other businesses that I've run before. And let me just actually go back. I know that in my case, in the case of BizLaunch, it's quite easy for us to get publicity because we're in an interesting business and things like that. But I've got publicity in all of my businesses. Even when I was a retailer, I got publicity. So I think it's not, don't sit there and say, well, it's easy for them, but not easy for me. The reality is that it's probably the same for both of us. It's more a mindset than anything else. And I've seen a lot of my small business owners over the years get publicity. And I've been surprised, because I thought sometimes their story was quite simple. So develop relationships with people in the media. Always get back to reporters. They always got a deadline. I've learned this lesson over the years. They always got a deadline. It's very short. They're phoning you last minute and they want these things done. Help them out when you can, and then they'll follow up. And if they like you, they'll regularly contact you. I know that was the case with us. We'd get a radio station or a TV station, phone us up and say, we need a small business owner. I'd pick up my phone a few small businesses. Those that responded, they got the publicity. And what happened, and I remember there was two specific examples, actually both female entrepreneurs. One made dog collars and the other one was in the art business. They got a lot of publicity. And I know why, because I'd phone them up and say, you know what, this newspaper is looking for somebody, or this magazine's looking for somebody, and they'd respond instantly. And only because they responded instantly did I use them over and over again, because I knew I wouldn't let the media down. Another big opportunity I have seen a lot of small business owners really capitalize on lately are radio and podcast interviews. I think these are quite a massive opportunity, and I want you to think about this. There's even platforms I know, because they send me information regularly, that say, you know what, this podcaster speaks regularly about small businesses. So this is a big opportunity for you. The other opportunity I like is community radio. I think your local radio station is very powerful and a big opportunity. And they're always looking for local stories. They're always looking for local stories. So you want to try and reach out. Again, if you don't know anybody, one of your strategies could be speaking to somebody at your small business center. We've got wonderful small business centers across Ontario that you can tap into to get a couple of contacts. So this is how we used to do it. And maybe you will do it differently, but this is how we used to do it over the years, is we used to send the radio, the podcast people, a list of questions they can ask us. We never used to say you have to use these questions. We'd say, you know what, here's some questions. If you'd like to use them, you can use them, because these are the type of things that small business owners are interested in, okay? So that's one of the strategies we used. I remember, for example, being interviewed in Winnipeg once, and that's exactly what we did. And then we had a Q&A session, which was a bit of a surprise for me, but Q&A sessions can be quite challenging, and I'll give you how I've dealt with it in the past. Whenever you're speaking on radio or podcasts or anything like that, just relax, speak slowly and clearly. What happens with me is sometimes I get excited. Now, let me rephrase that. Often I get excited and I speak too fast. So I almost have to consciously say to myself, just slow down, speak slowly, especially because I've got an accent. Slow down, speak slowly, and that's what you need to do. Ensure you're in a quiet place. So most radio interviews will not be take place in studios. They'll typically be taken over the phone. That's been my experience. Except in the Caribbean, I was working in Jamaica, I think it was. Maybe St. Thomas, I can't remember. St. Thomas, yeah. I was working on a project for Scotiabank in St. Thomas. And the first day I got there, again, it's just a bit of a mindset, is the first day I got there, I said, you know, it would be really great if we could get some publicity for this program. And then the one woman said, oh, no, I've got a cousin that runs a radio station. And that's exactly how I was interviewed in St. Thomas Radio, on radio in St. Thomas. Again, you see, it's the same mindset. Even when I work in these international projects, I work in some really interesting places like Croatia and Namibia and different places. When I meet the people running the program the first day, I always say to them, you know what, do you know somebody in the media? Because obviously I've come from another country, I'm visiting here. The media is always interested in that story. Even now, I'm actually currently running this webinar from a really beautiful spot. I can actually, I'm looking over the sea. It's getting a bit dark now, but I'm looking over the sea. I'm in Europe. And I'm going to be running a few workshops here in the next few months. And I can almost guarantee we'll get some publicity out of that. Why? It's interesting. Canadian business owner comes to Europe to run seminars or workshops for small business owners locally. The media love those stories, okay? Sure, you're in a quiet place. Repeat listeners' questions if live. So that has always been my strategy, actually both on radio and TV. If they have live in-call sessions, which sometimes I've seen even nowadays they do it. You know, the DJ or whatever they call those people that interview you, or it's not always a DJ, sometimes it's just a journalist. They'll say to you, can we have a few questions? You say yes. So that has been my strategy, is to repeat the question so it gives me time to think. That's what we do. And just get careful of this habit, which all of us get into, including myself. That's a great question, we say. And I can't get that out of my system. TV is another big opportunity. So we used to use the same thing. We used to send them a list of questions. I always say to people, relax if you're going to be interviewed on TV. Relax, speak slowly and speak clearly, and don't look at the camera. So that's really important. You'll see, for example, when people, actually I was looking at an interview today, one of the business owners that I coach, and she was smart. I could see she was looking straight at the interviewer and not looking at the camera, and that is exactly the way you should be doing it. So don't look at the camera, look at the interviewer. The other thing is dress appropriately. And I mean, actually my son Marcus said to me, Dad, you shouldn't tell people how to dress. And I said, you are right. But what does dress appropriately mean? Just, you'll see sometimes when you're watching TV, or people have check clothes on. And I mean, these some people that have been doing TV for a long time that have check shirts on or things like that, or they'll have a bit of shine on their face. So if you ever see me on TV, actually just doing video, if you ever watched a video that I've done, we've done a bunch of them for My Main Street and different programs. I always wear makeup. So now you know why I don't shine, because we get a bit of, I get a bit of oil on my face. So we put a bit of makeup, so nothing wrong with putting makeup if you're going to be on TV. Try and find primary colors. Actually, yesterday, but again, I didn't want to be too personal, but I working with a coaching client, and she was doing a webinar, and I felt like saying to her, use a bold color, like royal blue is a good color on TV. You know, things that just pop on TV. Those are the type of things. So I will typically, I don't actually often wear black, but today I was wearing black. But typically I'll wear something bold, you know, like royal blue. Blue is my favorite color, so it'll always be dark blue, royal blue, even a light blue or purple or something like that, because that pops on camera. That's what you do. Actually, Marco recently said to me, you know, when you use a mirrorless camera nowadays, I didn't know that information. It doesn't matter. So, but usually TV cameras, I think, are still traditional. So don't look at the camera and dress appropriately. Whatever's appropriate for you. Remember, this is your brand. This is your image. You want to make sure that it reflects your brand and image. Okay, so we've got a few minutes to go. If anybody's got any questions, you're welcome to post them in the chat, and then I'll leave a few minutes at the end to answer questions. But let's go back to this example. Remember, I said to you that I had this business owner, Nama, that I showed you a media page and things like that. Here's a very good example of what she's done. So she started getting a little publicity and now regularly gets interviewed. Regularly, this is her sitting in her office, and she regularly gets interviewed on TV. The other thing that she's done, which is really, really smart, is she started her own podcast, okay? So what she does, she finds developers out there and she interviews them on her podcast. So just think of that. Firstly, she introduces herself to the developers and she builds a relationship with them. She asks them questions. She lets them speak about her business and it benefits her. She's done a really, really good job. Actually, she created a video yesterday. I was watching it. She created a video yesterday sharing information on how to build a successful practice. So how to build a successful architectural practice. And she mentions what she's done along the way. And people are raving about this thing. They're saying, you know, it's wonderful that you're sharing how you've done it. And all she's doing is she's positioning herself as an expert. I always say to people, you know, share your expertise, share your knowledge. And she's a great example of a businesswoman that's done a good job. She's got a podcast, she's done webinars. There's another great way to build credibility. She's done webinars. She does these short little webinars that she shares on YouTube, all these type of things. And it is working in her favor. And it hasn't taken her a long time. Again, different business, maybe different to yours, but it's an opportunity for you. All right, so, I mentioned earlier on, when it comes to TV, you've got to watch what you do. So here's a couple of tips, actually. Use colors that are soft and complement your skin. Don't use patterns. Avoid excessive jewelry. Use makeup to de-shine, and you avoid anything shiny on yourself because it can be a little bit distracting. Again, a few little tips. Now, once you've got the publicity, you've got into the local newspaper, you got into the local radio station, you got onto local TV. Ideally, that's where you want to get onto if you can. Is the first thing you should do is tell your mother. She's the most important person in the world. She'll be proud of you. She'll tell all her friends. She'll say how smart you are and things like that. Put it on your website. Put on your website, put on your blog, maybe share it with your clients. These are some of the opportunities. Include a link on your blog. These are some of the things you want to be doing. Because again, you want to be building this brand. If you've got a LinkedIn profile, maybe share it on LinkedIn. If you've got a Facebook, share it on Facebook. If you use Twitter, share it on Twitter. You can even put on YouTube and a link to your website, all those type of things. I know somebody I was working with this morning, it's exactly what she did. She sent me a link to that. All right, so let me just summarize quickly, then I've got a few questions to answer for you. Firstly, I believe that free publicity is one of the easiest and the cheapest way to grow your business. Why? I've used it in my business over the years, and I've seen many, many business owners do exactly the same, and it's been very effective. The media, blogs, influencers, different people need you. They need your content. They need your story. They need to know about your products and your services. Always tell an interesting story. And if you can't tell an interesting story, get somebody that's a really good writer to tell your story for you. Regularly watch the media, read the media, listen to the media, see what they're talking about, especially if it's local community news. If there's something interesting that you've got a professional opinion about, I would reach out to them if I was you. Get some help. You can employ somebody in your community that does this as a business. If you don't have the budget, go speak to somebody at your local college. They can probably help you. Speak to somebody at your small business center. Maybe they've even got a directory. I've seen a lot of these small business centers have directories, they have newsletters, they have all these type of things. You know, if that's more your comfort level, start off with that. But here's the key thing. I think with any marketing opportunity, any sales opportunity, any publicity opportunity, the key to business success The key to getting free publicity is perseverance. And you've got to understand the importance of this. None of this stuff is easy. None of this stuff. I always say this to people. I speak to business owners that are now very successful and built great businesses. And they say, you know what, this is not easy. And I say, I know. Running a business is not easy. Getting free publicity is not easy. Marketing is not easy, but you've got to try. That is half the battle won, is when you try. All right, I'm going to answer a few questions.